So, Punki, you were mentioning before some of the processes that you use, and that some of them are sure that helps you with those barriers. But what do you do to go about those barriers? Do you use any particular frameworks, or what? Can you elaborate a little bit more on what do you do and how do you manage the execution and all these barriers that you were mentioning before, in terms of implementing your sustainability strategy?
Yeah. So I think to Nix's point, I think he's pointed out the Global Reporting Initiative, which is GRI. So they've got a very nice framework, that almost guides you
Mhm.
into, how you can effectively implement your strategy at the end of the day. And I think the framework start off, by helping you understand, what are the most important sustainability goals that you as an organization want to focus on and make an impact. So you start off there, and then from those sustainability goals, once you've defined them, then you say, for example, I mean, one of the sustainability goals that we chose for ourselves as an organization is SDG 13, which relates to climate action. And then when we get to the climate action, then you say within climate action, what frameworks are actually good to help us, to navigate the strategy process. And then in there, you'll find frameworks like the TCFD, which is largely, a framework for how you manage, risks and mitigate them around, climate-related issues. So from that perspective, you take that framework and then you apply it to your portfolio. And then also, given that we're a bank, so we've got membership of the Principles for Responsible Banking, which is through UNEP FI. So it's United Nations, program for financial institutions. And then through that institution is we've got, I would say more task groups that we meet with on an ongoing basis to define, I think, the frameworks, and also to hold each other's hands in terms of, how we can effectively implement, our strategies. And to a large extent, I think there's a lot of best practice, information that you get through those processes. But also at the same time is when you look at, for example, us as banks, we've got to issue like green loans.
Mhm.
So in the issuance of green loans, there's a very rigid process that you need to follow. So there's frameworks that have been defined, by the international capital markets that you have to go through, which guide you almost step by step in terms of what the requirements are, to make a loan, qualify for green funding. And then you take those frameworks and you utilize them. So what I would say in a nutshell is that, as I said, there's a plethora, I think, of frameworks out there that you can work with. The most important thing is to understand what is important for your organization, and then start aligning, to frameworks that are relevant to your particular organization. But I think the most important thing also is really about, taking it to its basic form as to what are you trying to solve for, which is a key question. And that question, it's all about, more from your clients or your communities. What is it maybe that they require the most, and what do you require the most from them? And then once you've clarified, I think, that for yourself, then it makes it a lot more easy then to choose the frameworks and then work with those frameworks in terms of, solidifying what your strategy needs to look like. Because ultimately, strategy has to make sense on the ground.
Correct.
And so it becomes very important, therefore, for you to make sure that you are always connecting it back to what's happening on the ground, because you have to be relevant there. And I think maybe the last aspect to mention is around capacity building, which is more about skills development. I think that becomes a crucial component of it. And I think it was Nick that also spoke a lot about that. It's all about making people understand in its simplest form, what is this thing all about? Because ultimately, the culture of the organization, I think Nola spoke to culture, needs to shift, towards this green economy. So I think for us as bankers, it becomes a lot more easier, to explain it in the sense that we very much are central, I think, to the economic development. In its simplest form, the economy has to transition and become green. So in that process then of transitioning the economy, you have to find ways then of helping people understand the need for that transition. And you tend to find that if you take it to the simple things that make sense to the men in the street, then it becomes a lot more easy for people to adopt. And I think finally we're finding that there's great interest in this subject, so that also makes it easy, because people are curious, and if you've got generous information that you can share, then you find that the transition also happens quite seamlessly.
So you mentioned the GRI. Do you elevate everything you identify there into the strategy? Do you find sometimes you have too much and then you just only end up picking some, or how do you manage that challenge? When is it too much?
Yeah, so I think that's why the first thing is you have to understand what matters the most to your key stakeholders. So it comes back to stakeholders. And then in understanding that, then it becomes a lot more easy then to map what matters the most to your stakeholders back to the GRI. And GRI basically will give you a view as to which are the SDGs that are important, which you need to work with. So for us, I think it starts with people, take what is most important to people. And then once you've got that, then you link it back to, where can then you as an organization be impactful. And then if you do that and you do it consistently, then you'll find that the implementation becomes a lot more easy because there's that strong connection between what matters the most to people in your business to, all of these frameworks that we're getting from out there.